Vibe Nation is live. Welcome to the High Vibe Nation, where we have set out to raise the vibration of every human being on the planet. Your hosts on this journey are Sherry Gideons and Pamela Aubrey. So let's join them now in their current interview with a high-vibing individual.
Welcome to the High Vibe Nation, the #1 positive media show focused on raising the vibe on the planet, a space for you to remember the power within you. It's a love revolution. I'm your host, Sherry Gideons, and this is my co-host, Pamela Aubrey.
Welcome, everyone. As always, such a joy to be with you and to have a very special guest. His name is Alex Schimmel, and he specializes in releasing people from limiting beliefs using philosophy from ancient wisdom traditions and modern psychology. Once these walls are broken down, you realize your birthright is a blissful, peaceful, and purposeful life. Alex lives and teaches the principle that the way you do anything is the way you do everything. The way you breathe, the way you communicate, the way you think ultimately determines the way you live. For the past 10 years, he has been teaching and sharing his 5 pillars of optimal living: proper breathing, boundless mindset, functional movement, conscious consumption, and unconditional gratitude. Alex is a national facilitator and teacher trainer for Lifetime Athletic and has led workshops, trainings, and retreats nationally and internationally. He currently lives in Phoenix, but is ready to embark on an international adventure with his partner, Bree, and Italian Greyhound, Sofie. So welcome to the show, Alex.
Welcome. Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh, we lost your sound all of a sudden. That's okay. We'll give you a second to kind of figure it out. Sometimes, sometimes the phones can be a little tricky.
No worries at all.
Sound?
There you go. You're back.
Okay, cool. What's up, my friends? How's it going?
Awesome. So great to have you here.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So as you know, on the show, we like to talk about what it means to be high vibe. So tell us what it means to you to be high vibe.
Yeah, so I feel like high vibe for me, that's shifted a lot. If you asked me 3 years ago or 5 years ago what that means. And now high vibe, it's not necessarily always just being positive all the time, but it's just being really true to yourself. So that's a shift that I've had in every moment. Instead of trying to be the best version of myself or like just the happiest version of myself, I'm just the truest version of myself. And I think high vibe is really more about authenticity than anything else.
Oh man,
love that.
Love it. So Alex, you're called the Yoga General.
Yeah.
And I love that name. Tell us how you got started in this business and how you came up with the Yoga General.
Yeah, so really yoga's been a part of my life forever. And my mom's a yoga teacher. So I grew up with yoga, kind of rebelled in my teenage years, but then got back into it when I was in college, really for sports purposes. I had an injury, a shoulder injury. I played baseball, needed to heal. And yoga was a really great way to heal my physical body. But then I started to see all these different benefits of the practice. I started to see that I was like doing better in school. I could pay attention. I could focus longer. I was more confident. And I started to really just follow this path. And it led me to sharing yoga myself. And the Yoga General was really born from one of my best friends. I knew this guy since we've been 5 years old. And I've just always kind of been like naturally wanting to lead. And as I got deeper into yoga and spirituality, he started to call me the Yoga General. And then I just started to kind of embody that role. And I think a big part of it is the old paradigm for yogis is that yogis are really meant to just be like calm and cool and collected, but also a big part of being a yogi is cultivating your inner warrior. So that's something I really when I work with my students, is to cultivate both sides. But the Yoga General is like, let's build an army of conscious warriors that can really fight in the name of love to change our society.
Wow.
That's amazing. So what does that actually look like?
What does that look like? To to raise the army.
Yeah, to become a yogi warrior.
Yeah. So I think it's similar to what I said with like what it means to be high vibe, where it's really living a truthful life, really living honest. To be a warrior, you have to be willing to face not just, life when it's really good and beautiful, but also, what's happening to you when there's challenges in your life, because challenge is it's a part of our life. We're going to experience that. You can't avoid those challenges or those moments that are a little bit harder. And when you cultivate that inner warrior, you're able to face it rather than maybe just trying to ignore it or numb it or run away from it, which is a pretty common thing for our society when the going gets rough.
Wow. I like that you shared that, because, even with us, with the High Vibe Nation, we're wanting to create this awareness around love. And it's a love revolution, to become a revolutionary for love. And so even so much of both myself and Pam's journey has been cultivating who we are on the inside and being from that higher, that higher space, like we said, holding a space for you to remember who you truly are, and that space of love. And then also holding up your spiritual sword and recognizing that the more you come into that reality of who you are, then people like you show up in our environment and in our circle of influence. And then we get to share with others how to do that. So you talk about optimal living, and that you have 5 pillars for optimal living. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that works?
Yeah, for sure. We could go really deep into it, but the idea is that every human being, very similar to what you just said, we have the ability, it's inherent, it's our birthright, to feel really good, to live a life of vitality, to be happy, healthy, to live a life that's purposeful and passionate. And that sounds really good. And I think there's a lot of people that understand that. But what's missing is like the roadmap and the way to do it. And sometimes when it's too broad, it's tough to really take steps in that direction. So I broke down what I've been teaching and living myself. And I think that's super important, is like, you got to go through it yourself to share it. Are these five pillars of optimal living. And we can talk through them. The first one is something that I've really been going on a deep journey with, and that's proper breathing. So I've always, as a yoga teacher, I've always taught breath. And even if I look back in my life, playing sports as a kid, I remember just naturally knowing taking a deep breath was going to help me. But then really in the last 6 months, I've dived deeper into this subject, reading different books, doing some research. And not only is it so essential to breathe well, but it's actually really detrimental to breathe poorly. And like 50% of our society has breathing problems that we kind of now think are just common issues of being a human.
Wow.
Well, that's really powerful. And I know you also talk about, functional movement. So what does that look like?
Yeah, functional movement. So that's something that's been really also has evolved over time, because at first as a yoga teacher, you learn a lot about like proper alignment and things are supposed to be a certain way. But the more that we research our bodies and see how they really move, we want to practice moving the way we move in our everyday life. And that's not necessarily in straight lines, right? So a lot of exercise, a lot of fitness that people do, they're running on a treadmill where it's just going in a straight line, or just lifting like big weights where, I'm moving on Saturday. So that could be good to be able to be strong to lift heavy weight. But a lot of injuries happen because we're not training the way we live. And then when we start to move our bodies just functionally like a normal human, we're like, whoa, our body's like, whoa, I'm not used to that, even though that's how we should move. And that's how we've been moving for thousands of years as humans.
I love that you share that, because as you know, I come from the professional fitness industry. And so what you're sharing with our audience today is so pivotal in helping people to understand how they actually get 2 to 3 times the results of an old traditional workout program when they begin to start, doing these sorts of movements from a place of awareness. But I want to take us back for a second, because you did something with me and with another group that we have together, which is a breathing technique. I want you to take our audience through your amazing breathing technique, because I really received, some pretty powerful energy just from that alone.
Love it. Yeah. So breath to me is also one thing I really love about it is it was something that was understood by ancient cultures and ancient wisdom traditions and our ancestors. We knew that it was a really vital part of living. And now it's kind of become like, well, you're breathing or you're not. And that's just not how it works. And it's good to shift that. So both what ancient yogis have been saying for a long time and now modern science is proving is that there is an optimal way to breathe. And there's so many different breathing techniques, but the optimal way to breathe just throughout your daily life is a 5.5 second inhale and a 5.5 second exhale. This really balances your nervous system. It helps you calm down. It releases nitric oxide if you're breathing through your nose so that your circulation is better. It's really good for blood pressure. It's just a powerful tool. And we breathe on average like 20,000 times a day. So it's something that if you're not doing it well, it's going to have some consequences. And if you are doing it well, it can really have great results. So for this breathing exercise, just sit up tall, or even if you're standing, you can stand tall, extend through the crown of your head. And then you're really working to breathe both into your belly and your rib cage. That's where you want to feel the swell. So your chest stays down, your shoulders stay down so we can breathe deep. And inhale deeply into your belly for about 5.5 seconds. Feel your rib cage swell. And then through your nose, nice and slow, exhale for about 5.5 seconds. Feel your belly and your ribs squeeze back together. We'll do like 3 more of these. Inhale slowly for about 5.5. Exhale for 5.5. And if you're not driving or anything, close your eyes for these last 2. Inhale deeply. Through your nose, exhale. Good, one more time. Feel the stretch in your belly and your ribs. Big inhale in. Full exhale out. Good, and then just notice, how do you feel? If you're tuning in, you can comment how you're feeling below. And Pam, Sherry, how do you feel from that short little 5 conscious breaths?
Woo. Yes.
Yeah, love those. And it looks like you had a visitor join us while we were doing that too. So she must have been feeling it too.
she sensed the good energy. She sensed the high vibes. Yeah, and breathing is so powerful too, because it's such a simple tool. It's always there for you. And that's something that I love about it so much, is that it doesn't matter what you're doing. Walk your dog, when you're exercising, obviously it's super important. When I was just in the dentist chair, I was focusing on my breath, and it really changed a lot. I never liked the dentist. I didn't have a good experience as a kid because I ate a lot of candy. So now I get, a little like unnerved, I guess, while I'm there. But today I was just focusing on my breath, and I was super calm and super relaxed. So that breathing practice is so powerful, and you can take it with you anywhere you go. 5.5 in, 5.5 out.
Love it. Love it.
Love that. Well, and you also talk about boundless mindset. So what does that mean?
Yeah, mindset is huge. So first of all, the breath is the first pillar, because you could be doing, it doesn't matter how well you eat, doesn't matter how much you exercise. If you're not breathing properly, you really can, you're really gonna like not be as healthy. It does make a huge difference. So that's the first pillar. Second pillar is mindset, and mind matters most. That's something that's super powerful. And really one thing that I know, and that so many people teach, so many coaches teach, so many amazing executives and CEOs live by, is what's going on up here, like what's going on in the inner landscape, or how you architect your mind, is going to show up in your life. And I think most people really experience that in some way. Like we all kind of know that. And really the biggest thing is what you believe, you achieve, right? And there's that common expression, I'll believe it when I see it. but it's actually the opposite. You'll see it when you really believe it. And something that's a tough pill to swallow that I teach a lot is we are living at the level of life that we believe we're worthy of. Like we are living to what we believe we are worthy of living. So when I work with individuals and groups, when we do some mindset work, it's really about changing your paradigm, right? So most of us have this idea of like, okay, we're going to fit between here and here, right? Here's the low limit. We're not going to let ourselves dip below that, whether that's happiness or financial or whatever it may be. And most of us also kind of place these ceilings on ourselves of like, yeah, I know I can feel good, but maybe only this good. Or I know I can make good money, but we still kind of have this limit. For a lot of people, it's unconscious. But when you can shift the whole paradigm and realize that you are boundless, that you are limitless, and when you can change or train your mind and your heart to believe that, it starts to show up in your life. You start to see amazing synchronicities. And it's just so cool that you really are in control. It's not random. You're not a victim. You have so much power to control the way your life looks, and getting your mind on board is a huge way to do that.
I like how you brought up the heart, because one of the things that I'm doing right now is heart math, and it's really bringing in that heart coherence. And I'm actually witnessing how the field is doing the work for me. I mean, so much is flowing in, and it's just, I started out on stage 1, now I'm to stage 2, and I'm just seeing the change so fast.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, is heart math Dr. Joe Dispenza? I know heart coherence. I know he teaches that.
So
I don't know
it's
if heart
part
math
of what
is.
he does, but that's exactly what heart math. You clip a little device to your ear, but what it does is it helps you to stay in sequence with breathing from your heart space and breathing out from your heart space.
I love that. And when we can really live in love, which is like your heart center, and your heart is also the bridge or the gateway to spirit, to your soul. And when we're living from spirit, when we're living inspired, we just know that our life is more optimal. But what I love about the heart coherence and learning about this is your heart is actually, like, I think it's 100 times or 300 times bigger of a magnetic force, 400 times bigger of a magnetic force than your brain. So it's your mind and mindset. When I speak to mindset, it is both. It's the heart coherence. It's what both your mind is thinking and when your heart is feeling. And when those get on the same page, it's beautiful. You create an electromagnetic force and you magnetize life to you. And that's another huge teaching that I love sharing, is that life doesn't come at you. Life comes from you, right? Like you're drawing in or you're putting out life rather than just getting it just happening to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, in some ways that's a novel idea for a lot of people. It's kind of a big shift to make. So how do you help people to shift into that kind of thinking?
Yeah, so a huge part of it is just start to pay attention to what makes you really feel good. Start to pay attention to what makes you inspired and enthusiastic. I love the word enthusiastic. It comes from the root entheos, and entheos means the God within. So when you're enthusiastic, it's like your inner soul or God or whatever word you want to use is awakened. And that's one of the biggest beacons towards like, hey, do more of what you're enthusiastic about. And when you're supporting your feeling good, when you're doing things that make you feel joyful and enthusiastic and happy, it's easier to stay in that rhythm, right? Like momentum is a huge part of how we live as humans. We're cyclical, habitual creatures. So when we can support our feeling good, it's easier to feel good. Where if you're focused on, the shitty things that are happening to you, it's easier to feel shitty, and that cycle can recur. So the biggest thing is start to pay attention to what you really like to do. And if that's hard, because a lot of adults can kind of like, we shut that off at a certain age where we're like, now it's business time and it's time to get serious. So maybe some inner child work. Like if you can't think of what you really love or excites you now, go back to when you were 5, 8, 10, 12 years old. What excited you then? Because that part of you is still inside. And letting that inner child out and feeling blissful and joyful, it's such a powerful force to attract your life.
Wow. You know what? Thank you for bringing that up, because Such an amazing little thing that I do is, so we can all bring a little picture out of us when we were 5 years old. And I used to do this exercise where I would look at the picture of that 5-year-old child and I would write all the things about her that were beautiful, and you brought out the word enthusiasm. I mean, one of my mentors says that enthusiasm is one of the highest vibrations in the universe besides love. And so when you're in it, like to say the word excited, I'm excited, but that is actually a lower vibration. Enthusiasm is pouring, like you said, in God, from God.
Love that. Yeah. And again, we have it in us. And the inner child, I just want to bring this up too, because sometimes inner child work for people that had tough childhoods, that can be like a traumatic experience. But it's also really important to do the healing there. So to go back to that place, and breath work is actually one of the ways that I facilitate these inner child journeys, is just going with your breath and taking yourself back to really to the very beginning and seeing your life, but maybe taking a step back and observing it and almost rewriting your story. So even if you had a tough childhood, or I think that one thing I've known, or I've realized more and more, is that we all have challenges that we deal with, every single person. And your challenges and your pain, they can actually, they are your purpose. They're huge guiding paths. So if you can rewrite, if it has been a tough childhood, you can rewrite that story to like, hey, this is what my soul chose, or this is what life gave to me, like gave for me, so that I could grow and evolve and maybe help other people heal or whatever it may be. But it's a really good path to purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And, I think there really are a lot of us that have been down that kind of road and have had to find our way, back to ourselves. And so I love that you bring that up. It's such a powerful point. I do quickly want to just say hello. We have so many friends here with us. Larry Schneider, hello. Frank Ingram, Robert Booker, Samuel Sneed, Glenda Wright. Thank you for being here with us. You guys are so amazing and so supportive, and we really appreciate you. And some really great comments that are coming up too. And yes, this is a great one by Samuel. Yes. And the key emotion is the key. 100%. You literally get what you feel. So yeah, absolutely. And so with that, I mean, oh goodness, where'd he go?
Hi
there. Somewhere under there is Alex. He'll be back eventually.
Love it. I'm back.
All right, there he is. Oh, goodness. And so, with that, I mean, I just think, it's kind of amazing to see, even just, in a quick amount of time, by sharing a message, the impact that you have on listeners. And, already, people are saying, absolutely, or I'm feeling this, or I'm feeling that. And it's really the power of some of these techniques. And so tell us, some of the most profound changes you've seen in people by, using some of these techniques.
Man, even just recently, so I'm in the middle of a program, a course that I've created called the 21-Day Breath Experiment. And it's 15 minutes of breath work daily, really with the intention of bringing that just conscious breathing to your life, to everything you're doing in your life. But in addition to that, we're leading these breath journeys that are 60 to 90-minute sessions where literally you're just breathing pretty hard, deep, like powerful breaths. And it can just take you into these incredible places. Stanislav Grof, he created holotropic breathing. You might have heard of that. It's one of the more popular ones. He actually he saw in the 60s how powerful psychedelic experiences could be on humans that were suffering. And as psychedelics got made illegal, he wanted to create a breathwork that simulated that could kind of take you to the same place. And when you do these breathwork journeys, you really can go to a place where it's like you're almost outside your body. You're really able to go back in time and get into your inner child. But just recently, I led one last weekend, and such powerful shifts for two people that are coming up specifically. One guy, his intention was self-love. And then afterwards he shared with me that his parents died at an early age, and he had 6 brothers and sisters, and they all just stopped talking to each other. Like they stopped loving each other because they experienced trauma. They didn't really know how to process it. And he said just in that 90-minute breathwork session, he was able to feel more love for his brothers and sisters than he's felt in 25 years. And that to me was so powerful. And then there was another woman who, and again, it's traumatic. There's people go through some stuff. This woman specifically, she said her daughter, something pretty traumatic happened to her daughter. She didn't go into details, but she kind of felt some shame around it, or guilt that she could have prevented it. And she actually was able to get to a place where she really forgave herself. What was left, she said she's been on a forgiveness journey for a while. She was able to forgive herself, but more importantly, she was able to forgive the person that did the harm to her daughter. And she said to be able to feel that love, to let go of the heaviness of hatred or of resistance, it just felt so good and freeing. And I mean, that's a lifelong shift. If you can keep that with you, it's going to change a lot. So those are just little things. But as far as the pillars of optimal living, everything from people just feeling better in their bodies, which is huge. Number one, you want to feel good. You don't want to have aches and pains. It's not a natural part of a human experience. It doesn't have to be, at least. Having a mind that works for people rather than against people. I've had students say that my mind is my worst enemy. I'm constantly talking negative to myself. And then in some time of practice and work, they're like, I realize that my mind can create a beautiful reality. So that's huge. Conscious consumption, it's a pillar we haven't talked about yet. That's another one that I really tell everyone that how important it is. And really the idea of it is everything that you consume, not just what you eat, but what you consume mentally, emotionally, you become what you consume. And when people change the way that they eat, when they change the way what they watch on TV, when they change what they listen to on the radio, and when they change what they're consuming, life changes for people. So really powerful things.
Yeah, and I like how you keep bringing us back. And you can tell with your clients as well, you're bringing people back to the mindful awareness of living in the moment, of being present in the moment. I have a little setting on my Apple Watch where you can adjust it, and it'll literally remind me throughout the moments of today to breathe, to take that 1 minute, 60-second breath. And just that alone, releases a lot of stress and anxiety, or, sometimes we're overwhelmed because we're on the go all the time. And I like how you keep bringing us back to the importance of these pillars with this breath. Yeah.
Yeah. I really feel too that if all you do is breathe consciously, it sounds way oversimplifying, but if you just breathe consciously, all the other pillars start to happen because you become more intuitive. So you realize that you have to move your body. You feel that little call to move. You realize when you're conscious with your breathing, you realize how food makes you feel. So you become more conscious with what you eat. It just translates into everything you do. If you breathe first, everything else will fall into place. Wow, and yeah, I think that's so powerful. One thing I didn't share too about breath, in a lot of ancient languages, especially these wisdom healing traditions, the word for breath is the same word for spirit and soul and life. So really when you're connected to breath, you're connected to source, you're connected to spirit, you're inspired, right? Inspiration, respiration. So when you're breathing deep, you're in spirit, and we all know that that's an amazing emotion to feel, and that's such a powerful place to live from.
Eric says, how do I get your program?
What'd you say?
Eric says, how do I get your program?
TheYogaGeneral.com, Eric, the 21-day breath experiment. You'll see it up there. It's powerful. People are really having tremendous shifts. One girl, she signed up for it, and she actually got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, just the day 2 or something, or day 3 of it. And she's just been saying it's helped her so much with going through the treatments. And, it's a huge life change. She's a yoga teacher that lives a pretty good, happy, healthy life. And then all of a sudden she gets this news, but she's so grateful that this is the time for the breathing practice too. And that's like one of my big missions. It's like a sub mission of mine, is just to help more people breathe correctly and breathe properly.
I got
Well, and so how do you?
There you go.
Oh, living breath so easy. Yeah, that's so true. And so tell us, how do you kind of see this transforming, lives, but also society?
Yeah. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. And the way you breathe is the way you live. And really, if you want to start paying attention to not just how you are feeling, but also how other people are feeling, is watch how they breathe. And if you're breathing a short, choppy breath, erratic breath, you're going to live a shorter, choppy life. And if you're able to breathe deep and full and rich, then your life is going to be fuller, deeper, and richer. And really, even just length of life, we see that when you breathe better, you live longer. Greater lung capacity is associated with a longer lifespan. Greater heart rate variance. I'm drawing a blank on the actual proper term of it. But when you can have a greater length of inhales and greater length of exhales, it's better for your heart, and that's another sign that you live longer. And even if we look into nature, if we look at creatures that breathe really short and like fast breaths, like dogs, they live a short life. Humans a little bit longer. But if we look at something like a sea turtles live they breathe like 2 breaths per minute, and they can live up to 200 years in the wild. So truly, the way you breathe is the way you live. And if you commit to your breathing, you just start to become aware of everything in your life and how it impacts you. And awareness is the first step to change with everything.
Yeah, that's so true. And I love how you talk so much about spirituality and modern day spirituality. Especially right now with what's happening with COVID-19, and there's so many souls that are seeking. They're seeking to understand about what's going on and in themselves. How would you start out with people who are going through these different changes in spirituality?
Yeah, there could be a lot of work. It really depends on the person. But I think the big thing that people can realize is modern spirituality, to me, is you can be recognize that you're a spiritual being, recognize that source is flowing through you, and you have a connection to God, and that's a really important part of living. And you can also make the most of this material world. So I think it used to be like, well, if I'm about my business and money, then I can't be spiritual. But that's actually so far from the truth. We're here to enjoy. We're here to really get the most out of this life. So that's a big part of it. As far as COVID-19 goes, one thing that's really been coming through strong for me is COVID-19. There's a lot of fear, right? But COVID-19 is not the source of fear. What COVID-19 is doing is it's uncovering how afraid we are as a society of death, right? It's because really showing like, okay, we're vulnerable beings. That we, and it's showing this fear of death. And one big thing that I love practicing with my students or with my clients is embracing death, realizing that death is coming, and that death is and in a spiritual view, death is beautiful. It's just as beautiful as birth, right? Because from a deeper spiritual perspective, we keep going. Our bodies die, but the spirit that's within us, our energy, it keeps going. And when you can realize that like death is not something to be afraid of, but something to embrace, it actually makes you live life so much fuller. And you stop taking life for granted, which I think is one of the biggest challenges for just people in our society, is we just take life for granted. We think like, okay, I have 40 or more years to do this, or 30 more years to do that. And it's like, well, maybe, but you also might only have 5 years. And if you did know that you only had 5 years to live, how would that change your life?
I love that you say that, because when I was really a young child, I would go with my father, who was a minister, to visit people who were shut in and older. And in some cases, I would go and visit people who were getting ready to cross over. And I remember one instance in particular, just holding this woman's hand, and she is someone who I had been close to. And just knowing, and just having this knowing that, she was just kind of like going to be on the other side. It wasn't like she was really going to be gone, but even though I knew she was leaving, and it was really a peaceful moment. And I agree with you that in our culture, we kind of have this stigma around it. Like, it's a scary thing, or, it's hard for us to lose people. So how can people approach death in a different way and start to shift their mindset around it?
Yeah, love that. So one thing that I lead, and this comes from Buddhist philosophy or Eastern philosophy, is these death meditations. So it really will be a guided meditation where you contemplate these 9 points of death. We won't go deep into it, but really it's, again, this realization that, like, death is coming and you don't know when it's going to come. And there's all these different ways that you may die. And ultimately it makes you realize if you don't know when death is coming, then you're going to want to live fuller. And then I love the country of Bhutan. It's next to Nepal. They're considered to be one of the happiest nations on earth. They actually, to measure the success of the nation, instead of doing GNP, gross national product, they do GNH, gross national happiness. So they literally measure the happiness of the people. And in their culture, it's built in where 5 times a day they contemplate or meditate on death. And that's really different than in our culture. Recent research and studies have showed that up to about 75% of people are afraid to even think about death. And these people, they're thriving, super happy. They're thinking about death 5 times a day, right? So a lot of times the work that we're avoiding is the work that sets us free. And when we start to look into that stuff and we start to, face death, it actually is the biggest spark to living fully.
I love that you share that, because people like myself, I've had 2 near-death experiences and I've crossed over twice. And, the first one being in 1997, when the world wasn't quite awake, open, or even ready to have the conversation about near-death experiences. And someone like myself is coming back and really sharing that it is absolute oneness, that you are one with everything, that you are embodied in the idea of absolute and pure love. And like Pam's growing up with her father as a minister, I grew up with my grandfather as a minister and went to Christian school. And we were always led to believe during the 60s and the 70s that death was to be feared, and that, we were going to be judged the day we die. And it's not like that at all. I re-looked at everything I gave while I was in the body, but I re-looked through all I had given too. So if I hurt you, hit you, talked behind your back, stole from you, or gave you what you're saying, love, joy, happiness, I got to feel through you what I gave, what you felt. Wow. And so that's why when you keep bringing up, I feel like you just it's like the message keeps coming back to living in the moment and attaching to joy, attaching to this embodied, embraced feeling of good and greater good, because we're it, and it's available to us at any moment.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Yeah, and also, again, that's something that I've shared space. I've had roommates in the past that were going through some depression and stuff, and 10 years ago I was very like positive vibes only, super optimistic. And that can rub people the wrong way, and people can struggle. And a lot of times being positive or attaching to joy, it can feel like, okay, easier said than done. But when you do practice, when you support these things, when you stop, like, I know these people that are like, yeah, just everything seems so dramatic in my life. And then they're watching like 4 hours of Bravo TV where it's all shows about drama. And it's like, well, that's gonna come. Like, you're consuming that. Or if you feel like a lot of fear, or just kind of feel like not so good in your body and mind, but you're consuming like low quality meats, and I eat meat. I think meat can be beautiful, but you have to be conscious of where you're getting it from. So there's that conscious consumption, because if you're consuming like really low quality meats, that there's like fear in that food, right? Like these animals just have a constant stress response going on. So it's like you're picking up fear. And there's so many different things that people do where they're bringing into themselves exactly what they're trying to get out of. They're trying to get out of these patterns of stress or sadness or anger, but that's what they're watching on TV. That's the music they're listening to. That's the thoughts that they're, paying attention to most. And so it's not necessarily easy work, but it really can be simple if we start to follow or just consciously choose these pillars in our lives.
Wow. And I think that's such an important point, because in some senses we can overcomplicate it. And so it's like, okay, if we come back to some fundamentals, then it's really not that complicated. It can actually be relatively simple. And even though it seems like, we're asking a lot, well, don't be afraid to die. Well, who isn't afraid to die, right? But at the same time, really what you're saying is so true, that the more that we sit with whatever that is that we're afraid of, then the less and less power it has over us. And that's really what you're saying, is just whatever these things are that are coming up, as opposed to avoiding them and watching 4 hours of Bravo, maybe sit with them for even 4 minutes and see what happens.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think also a lot of people have fear of death, but I think if you boil it down, it's actually fear of fear of fully living. Because if you're living fully, it's like the Marianne Williamson quote, our light can kind of scare us, because we're like, wow, am I good enough to do this? Am I powerful enough to do that? And then the fear of death comes, where it's not fear of death, but it's fear of not living the life that that's possible. So fear of your dreams dying, the fear of your purpose dying. That's really what it is. So we can even change that to like, let's be all in on living.
That's so beautiful. Why do you think that our society is set up in this conditioned behavior around looking at all this limited stuff? Why is it so hard for us to connect to the true belief that we are love, that we have everything, everything we need?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's I think there's a lot of reasons why. I think one, first of all, just nervous system stuff. Your nervous system has to be in a state of calm to tap into that truth, to tap into that knowing. And our nervous systems are constantly bombarded with external stimuli. And unfortunately, and not all people are like this, but if you're the average human or the average American, the stimuli that you're being bombarded with, if you're watching TV, it's these messages that like, hey, something's wrong with you, right? Like we're constantly, all these pharmaceutical advertisements that like, hey, are you like tired at 3 p.m.? Well, you have all these issues. Well, it's like, well, yeah, everyone's kind of tired there, And so we're constantly being told that we're not good enough or we're not healthy enough. We're told that we're kind of, it's given to us that we need to have certain material things to be happy, a certain amount of money to be happy. And we're taught that we're just bombarded with a lot of fear, even with the virus. I mean, I know a lot of people that when everything went down, instead of allowing fear to become this weight that they put on, they decided like, I'm going to really take action. I'm going to let this guide me to a higher vibration, to a higher level. And it's like, I'm going to use this as resistance to level up. I'm just reminded of this story. I heard this story where like a donkey fell into a well and they couldn't get the donkey out of the well. So they were like, all right, well, I guess we have to bury it. So they started pouring dirt into the well to like bury the donkey, and the donkey shook it off and then stepped up onto the dirt, shook it off, stepped up onto the dirt. And as stuff kept coming on top, it's actually what was the impetus or the force that helped the creature rise. And I think we can do the same thing, but we have to have the awareness of it, because most people aren't aware that they're being bombarded with fear and being bombarded with these messages that we're not enough and that we need to be, faster, skinnier, taller, more tan, whatever it may be, richer. And yeah, so our unconscious mind, we kind of take on these identities of not enoughness.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And I love what Samuel said. He said, lies believed breed fear. So stop watching the daily news. I really do think, it's too easy to get caught up. It's like we think that there's something we're going to miss. It's like FOMO or something. It's like, are they really reporting anything that we're going to miss? And allowing ourselves to kind of break away from some of that and realize that, our lives are going to go on just fine if we don't watch the daily news. And in fact, they might even get better, or watching some of these shows that just really don't do anything to serve us, to help us to grow or to make our lives more positive. And I hear you saying just having an awareness of that is really important.
Yeah, awareness is the key. It really is the first step. You can't change something you're not aware of. And also after you're aware of it, you have to accept it. You have to accept, like, this is where I am right now. This is my reality. And okay, this is my starting point. Now I can move forward. So that's it. That's a huge part of everything. And as you practice becoming more aware with anything that you do, it happens in all places. It happens with everything. That's another reason that breath is so powerful, because if you're consciously breathing, you're in the present moment, you're living life on purpose, you're being intentional, and you're aware. So you're able to really start to see how these other patterns affect your life. And then awareness, one thing with this like journey of healing, this journey of becoming free, you realize that as you learn more, as you become more free, you realize you have so much more work to still do. Like the journey just keeps going. And I think that's a beautiful thing too. You have to enjoy the journey. No matter what it is you're doing in life, you have to enjoy the journey of it rather than just being destination focused.
That's beautiful. I like how you keep bringing us back to joy. So, we've all heard in the self-development industry that what you attach to is what you put out based on vibration, and it grows the frequency. And so when you talk about, seeing what's in front of us for its reality, what we could call the stuff or the pain or the suffering or, the wounded child, what advice would you give in the moment of how a person could observe what's in front of them with awareness, but not attached to the same energy that's showing up in their environment and in their experience?
Yeah, I love that. So one thing I really look at is how people are talking to themselves and what words they're using. So it's a good practice that I'll start with is helping people realize that you're not your body and its sensations, and you're not your mind and its fluctuations, because you can observe those things. So if you're observing those things, you're not them. So that's a huge part of it. And then you start to realize if you do get flustered or upset or angry, it's not I am angry. It's like my mind is agitated. And that simple switch, saying or recognizing that it's your mind that's angry, or my body is in some pain. It's not I am in pain. It's not like, don't take ownership of those things you don't want, especially with people that deal with anxiety or a lot of stress, and they say like, my anxiety. It's not your anxiety. Like, drop that. You don't need to take ownership of it. It's anxiety that you experience or that your mind experiences. But that's a huge shift in itself, because your words are so powerful. So when you realize that the spirit, the essence of spirit is everything you're looking for, you can just realize that these other feelings, they're just little obstacles that are in the path, and it's causing you to level up a little bit. Beautiful. Embrace it. Embrace what you're feeling. It's not you, and it's temporary. And then go back to spirit. And again, like setting a habit pattern of conscious breathing is so beautiful, because breath gets you into spirit. That's the bridge.
I love that. And, it really plays well with the idea that we're really not necessarily healing. We think of ourselves as having these things we need to heal. And in reality, we're just realizing things, because the reality is that we're whole. But all these other things convince us otherwise. And it's us learning to uncover the truth underneath all of these other illusions.
Yeah. And also, like, we are whole. I love the Rumi quote that our task is not to seek love. Our task is just to seek and find any barriers that we've built up against it. That's such a powerful thing. And that's really what we're doing. The whole practice of yoga and meditation and spirituality and high vibe living is, it's not so much about becoming more or like accumulating more. It's about shedding the skin, shedding the extra, letting go of all those extra layers and the masks and the armor that we wear. And then we'll be who we've always been. And, look at a baby, look at an infant. They're so pure source, happy, free, loving. And that's what we can get back to. It's in us.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you say to people when you share this wisdom that you're sharing with us and they say to you, it's too much work, it's too hard?
Yeah, I mean, it's true that it is work, and there's no fast fix. Some things may accelerate the process, but there's no fast fix of it. And I think the biggest thing is, what I really have tried to do in my life more lately is be a model rather than a judge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to kind of judge those people, like, how do you not want to get better? Like, don't you want to feel good? And there's so much, but people live to their own level of awareness. And I think the best thing you can do is just light the way for others. And you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I think that's something that you have to keep in mind. If someone doesn't want to do the work, it may just not be time for them yet. But I'll continue to just be a model and hopefully be a positive influence.
Yeah, I think that's really, and I think even if we're that person, and we're looking at our life and we're going, I want to change, but I don't know if I can, I don't really even know how to take that first step. I don't even know where to start. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, I think that the first step is huge, and it can be such a take one step in the direction of your dream life, whatever that feels like to you, not even looks like, feels like. Take one step, because one step is how you build momentum. And if you take one positive action, especially if you like start your day with it, right? If you're listening to this or even just right now, like do one positive thing, and you'll start to get a little more results from it. And then once you start to get results, it's easier to do another positive thing. And then that wheel of success, that momentum wheel, it just keeps rolling. So I'd say, like, start really small. Do one thing that supports your feeling good. And then from there, if you do just that every day, like, you can do this stuff for 10 minutes a day, and it's going to take a little bit longer than if you do it, throughout your whole day. But you do 10 minutes a day of this, like, mindset work and movement, and take these 5 pillars of living in 10 minutes, and you're going to feel great in just a few months. Like, you're really going to notice a difference. And then in 10 years, you can't even imagine how different your life can be.
I like that you brought that up, because when I was in the nutrition and personal training business, everybody would set the intention that they wanted to exercise and lose weight. And let's say they set a plan to eat 6 times a day. And then on one of the meals they messed up, they'd go in their head and they'd say, okay, so I messed up. That means I'll just start again tomorrow instead of going forward to the next meal. Okay, so that meal I might have boo-booed on, but let me just move forward to the next meal. And I'm building my habit, just like building a muscle in your body.
I love that so much. And I think a big thing is it's not linear, right? The path of anything is not linear, and there's ups and downs. So you have to just ride those waves. And it's kind of like a heartbeat. Like, you want the ups and downs. You don't want to just have a flat line. So it's good to embrace that, but realizing too that every moment is an opportunity to start again. Every single moment in your life, you're able to begin again, and get really good at that. So even when I teach yoga classes, part of the style that we teach is, like, I'll make it intentionally challenging enough where people do experience some failure. Like, we'll hold a forearm plank for long enough that everybody falls out. And what you're doing is you're cultivating the ability to start again, which is so powerful and so huge. Not getting swept away by failing, right? Fail is first attempt in learning or 50th attempt in learning. And when you realize that, it really makes it like, okay, it's okay. It's okay to fail. The most successful people in the world, most of the time when they tell their story, they're not just talking about their great synchronicities and successes. They're saying, hey, I failed and this is why I'm successful, because I went through this challenge. I went through the mud and this is why I'm successful. Not because I was just, privileged.
Yeah, I think that's really important too, is just to keep in mind that this isn't just for people who have had an easy life. And in fact, it's probably more important for those who have really gone through a lot of struggles to embrace some of these ideas, because the truth of the matter is it's helping them to be set free from so much of what those things have created in their life. And just to know that there's not a limit on that, no matter what has happened, there's still that opportunity for revealing the whole you.
Yeah, I love it. And also it's a lot of times these things that do cause suffering, that are challenging, they're gifts. They really are gifts. And when you're in it, it's so hard. Like if you're going through it right now and you hear me say that, it might cause you to get like angry or have aversion. And I get that. Like, that's how I'd feel too. But when you're on the other side of it, you look back and you're like, wow, that was a gift, right? It's like, I don't know. I love to hike, and there's some good hikes here in Arizona. If you go through a really challenging hike, like that really demanding hike, getting to the top is so much more gratifying. It's so much more beautiful than if it was like an easy stroll or you just drove to the top of the mountain and got out of your car. It's such a difference. So, yeah, but again, that's mindset work. It's looking at, like, discomfort is something to seek. Discomfort is something to not even just embrace, but seek out, so that you can really get in the habit pattern of, hey, when challenges come, I'm even more grateful because I have an opportunity to level up.
So talk to us about taking the big leap in all of our lives. And I know that you're getting ready to take some big leaps, and you're going to be leaving Arizona for a bit. Tell us about how to take big leaps in our life.
Yeah, so I think taking big leaps, first of all, your intuition is strong, and there's a powerful voice, especially when you give it energy, where you can hear and you know that there's something inside you that is work to be done in this life. Whether it's something like starting your own business, leaving your job that you're not happy at, or maybe changing your relationship, or writing a book, like whatever it may be, there's something in us. I know I've talked to so many people, and we all have that, but we're afraid. We're like, who am I? And again, a big part of it is do a little death meditation and reflect. Hey, if you were going to die in 1 year, what would you do in the next 12 months? And those things are your guide. Those are your beacons. Those are things that you should do in your life. And so for me, my girlfriend and I were getting ready. We're leaving Arizona. I'm leaving Lifetime, which has been an incredible company to work for the last 5 years. I've been so blessed. I've connected with so many people, had a great platform to share yoga. But it's just time. And it's also reflecting, living in a place like Tulum, Mexico is a dream of mine. Why do I have to wait till I'm 50 years old to live it, right? Like, why do I have to wait till I'm 35 to live it? I'm 31, and it's something I've dreamed to do, and it's time to do it. And I know that no matter what that experience is like, and I'm trying not to have too many expectations, I just know that it's going to help me level up in every area of my life. And there's a beautiful quote from Terence McKenna where he talks about, like, the nature rewards courage. And one of the biggest things that we learn, and that all the shamans and philosophers have taught, is when you delve yourself into the abyss, like when you take that leap, you realize it's a feather bed. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so beautiful. And I've experienced that in my life and other leaps I've taken. I left my first job out of college to go do a yoga tour of, like, being a student for yoga. And I spent all the money to my name. And I was like, wow, now I'm a yoga teacher and I can do this full time. And it was amazing things. And just take the leap. And really the worst thing that happens is you can go back to where you were. Like, you don't really have as much to lose. And usually the negatives that we come up with, or like the challenges we come up with, they don't usually even happen. It's all illusion. And nature rewards courage. If you do take that leap, whatever it is in your life, you're going to start to see amazing synchronicities. Doors are going to open that you didn't even know were there. And and I'm living it right now. So I'm excited to see what's in store, for sure.
Beautiful. Well, tell our listeners how they can find you and connect with you.
Cool. So on social media here on Facebook, you can find me, but Alexander Schimmel. Instagram is The Yoga General, and my website is theyogageneral.com. Those are really the best ways to connect right now. I'm building on my YouTube, so I'm gonna have a YouTube channel. Really a big part of going to Mexico too is like developing all these pillars of my business that I haven't, and I'm putting this in quotes because I haven't made a priority, but I haven't had time for, working a full-time job. And now this is like my full-time thing. So I'm going to have a membership site where you're going to be able to get all my teachings, classes. I have this breath program. I'm going to do a program on death. This is the first thing that I already created. It's called the breath experiment. And the next one is going to be called the death experiment. And it's going to be similar. Like when you meditate on death every day, let's see how much your life can shift in just a few weeks. So those are the best ways.
That's awesome. So this new program that you're doing right now, they can find that on your website at theyogageneral.com.
Yep, theyogageneral.com, and then under offerings, it'll live right there.
Wonderful. Well, Alex, my gosh, it's been amazing having you on the High Vibe Nation. We have just absolutely loved this conversation.
Yeah, so good.
Thank you.
So good.
So
yeah,
awesome.
Such a blessing to be here. Thank you guys for having me so much. And thanks, High Vibe Nation, for tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, thank you for being here. And thank you, everyone, for being with us. You can find the High Vibe Nation on the web at thehighvibenation.com. And you can also find us on Facebook at the High Vibe Nation or on Instagram at the High Vibe Nation.
Awesome. Well, thank you once again, everyone, for always following us and being part of our audience on Monday evenings at 5:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And now we have Wednesdays coming up. I want to let you all know that our Wednesdays from here on out are with the Cat Heel Band. And we are going to be having in music, so tunes and talk. Wednesday, Higher Love, tunes and talk with the Cat Heel Band. So all of you who know Cat Heel know she's an amazing singer. And so we look forward to having you enjoy and join in on that on Wednesday evenings. So until then, I want you all to have an amazing rest of the week. And we'll see you here on the High Vibe Nation Wednesday evening.
Hi, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
From everybody here at the High Vibe Nation, we want to say thank you for choosing to raise your vibration. And of course, please like, share, and subscribe. If you need to find us on the web, check us out at www.thehighvibenation.com. Looking forward to seeing you on the next episode, and keep high vibing.